In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to apply accents to a basic eighth note strumming pattern. So we've provided you with a chart of 20 examples of where to add accents. And like I mentioned in the last lesson, this is only some combinations that you can do. There's so many combinations of accents that you can add. You're just going to really have to play with it and try to add your own and see what you come up with. But I've given you 20, and a lot of them are really common places to add accents. Some are less common, and you'll be able to see how a simple eighth note strumming pattern can totally be transformed with accents. So if you look at your chart that's titled Examples of Adding Accents to Eighth Note Strumming Pattern, you'll see 20 examples like I mentioned, and this chart looks really similar to the other charts you had that have strumming patterns in them, so you should know how to read it by now, except for the accents. And the accents are underneath each of the up and down arrows that signify your strumming, and they look like little V's turned on their side. So those are where you add accents. So when you see one of those symbols under whether it's a down strum or an up strum, that's where you add the accent. So I'm going to do example 1 just to show you. And example 1 is adding an accent to the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So those quarter note beats. So here's example 1. So, that's not necessarily one you'd use that often, but I just want to show what it would sound like. Because example 2 is the opposite of that. Example 2 is adding accents to the ands of each beat. So it'd sound like this. And like I mentioned in the previous lesson, when I'm doing those accents, when I'm not doing an accent on a down strum, a lot of times I'm just going to hit the first 2 or 3 strings, and that's what I did there to really bring out the accent on the up strum. So example 3 is actually a really useful one. It's where you're adding the accent on the 2 and the 4, and that's what's known as a backbeat. So in like rock music or popular music or funk, that backbeat is a strong beat where you're going to hear that snare a lot of times, or it's where you're going to clap your hands. So example 3 would sound like this. So you can probably hear that sounds pretty strong. Example 4 is adding it to the 1, 2, and the and of 3. So that one sounds like this. And I'm just going to go through one more example. I'll do example 5 just to show you. I don't want to go through all the examples because I'm going to have you do that on your own at the end of this lesson. But example 5 sounds like this. So that's adding accents to the 2, the and of the 3, and the and of the 4. And now hopefully you can see how many endless combinations there are that you can do. You could put multiple accents in a row. You could just have one accent by itself. It's really endless what you can do, and it's really something you should play with and try to figure out stuff on your own, figure out different accents you can use. So now I'm just going to go back to example 3, which is the accents on the backbeat on the 2 and the 4, and I'm going to play through the first chord progression I showed you just so you can hear it in an actual chord progression. So you can really hear how that changes the sound, because if I did that same chord progression with just 8 notes and no accents, it sounds like this. So that's going to get really boring really fast if you do that for a whole song. For practice, I want you to go through all 20 examples and work them out. You can obviously start with the first 5, which is what I showed you, and listen to how I'm doing it and really try to figure out what sounds best when you're strumming an accent, how to do it, how it feels, and then what sounds best to not strum an accent, so what strings you're going to lightly hit. And it's really just a feel that you have to practice and get down on your own, because everyone has a different touch, and I can only explain it and show it so far, but it's, my strumming is going to be different than your strumming just because I have a different touch than you. So just go through these examples, go really slow at first. So when you're, example 3, you can start. And just really try to figure it out before you just jump in and try to do it to speed. And once you have them down, you can add it to the basic beat jam track that you already have and play it with that. So you can move on to the next lesson when you get the feel of the accents down, when you feel fairly comfortable playing accents. The next lesson we're actually going to apply into the quarter note and eighth note mixed strumming patterns. So you kind of need to get the feel of the accents down. You don't have to have all 20 examples down before you move on. That's going to take you a while, but just really get the feel of it down. So once you have that, you can move on to the next lesson, and we'll keep moving forward.